And I think recruiting at every level, if you can't recruit, you can't win. You have to learn how to recruit.
I will not go below 30 unless the player's an absolute stud as far as work ethic.
We'll congratulate each other and chug some beers if somebody wins a national championship.
If they did, don't you think I'd have 2 championships by now? I might have 3.
Now, I know Cash uses those booster gifts. He's always promising cash and women, right?
I've only been caught twice. That's it.
I don't know why, but that cracks me up every time I hear it. Welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. I'm your host, Majique, and this is the 1st of July, so we've been a couple weeks between episodes due to some personal reasons, but we're here. Everything's fine. Everybody's happy and healthy, so we're going to see if we can't make this a routine of every 2 weeks or so. See if I can fix my ear pods here. Looks like I got Frankenstein coming out of the side of my head or something. I guess that's just a deformed ear that I have. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, glad to be with you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we can get Chris on today. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not, but I know there was a recent update on the 29th, I believe, and it had a couple things for the Gridiron Dynasty, a lot more so for some of the other platforms and other games. But if he pops on, then we'll get some more information on that. Tonight, we're going to have a guest on. It's been a while since we've actually had a scheduled guest, and this is Coach Armchair, and he's a rather new Gridiron Dynasty player, so really interested to get some of his input regarding some of the hurdles to overcome as a new coach and just how big the learning curve is. You know, for a lot of people that have been playing this game forever, there's some things we take for granted, some things that come second nature, basically. And for new players, those new coaches, those can be some pretty high obstacles to overcome. So I'm going to see if we can't get him on. We do have some people on right now that are live tuning in. Let's see what we got here. Brian Ward wants to know something about the recruiting time in Bryant. I'm not sure exactly what that question's about, but I'm sure he'll elaborate more. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get Armchair on here. Armchair, how are you, sir? Can you hear me? Can you, are you muted? No? Let's see if we can unmute you here. There you go. Can you hear me?
Majique?
Yes. I can hear you. Can you not hear me?
I've got an indicator on the screen that says I'm on the show, but I can't see you or can't hear anything. I don't know if you all can hear me.
That is strange. Bear with me just a second. Let's see.
Okay. It's good to talk to you in chat. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Wow. Computer audio is what I'm thinking. Let's see.
I'll check my audio level. I was listening to music earlier, so it was working.
Huh. In the meantime, we have Sean. You got us right.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can hear both
I've got
of you guys.
audio.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try logging off and back in.
Can you hear me, Magic?
Okay. Yeah, I've got you. So we can hear each other. We know the communication's working. It's just a matter of getting Armchair to get his setup working right.
I could hear Armchair too. So
Yeah, I
don't
could
know.
hear him, but he couldn't hear me.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, we'll get him back on, hopefully. Give him a few minutes here. Man, anyway, what do you think of this update? Did you we're getting some feedback. I think it's on your end. Hold on a second. Okay, it went away. Yeah. Unmute. Okay, Armchair says he can see and hear me, so we'll pop him back into the stream. How's that working for you? Armchair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Armchair, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, Armchair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm messing with you. we got you 5 by.
That's good. I don't know what happened earlier.
It's just that, man, it's electronics. It happens. Yeah. Believe me. It's just one of those things.
I thought I figured out all these different platforms, but I guess not.
Yeah, this is actually the easiest one that I've actually encountered and had the pleasure of using. It's really, really simple, really easy. I like the fact that there's no special software you have to download or nothing like that. And again, all the thanks to turning me onto this platform was, the dude named Bob Hazelwood. You may recognize that name with the GD reports. Yeah, that was good old Bob. Yep, he's the one that made it happen. Let's see what we know about you. Coach Armchair joined April 19th of 2021, 64 wins and a 780 winning percentage. So, while that joining date indicates a relative newbie, the winning percentage says that you've got a pretty good handle on that learning curve.
I've inherited some good teams. I think that's a lot to do with it.
Is that what?
Yeah.
you just saddled up a horse that was ready to run.
Yeah, I picked up some teams that really were complete rebuilds, and then I didn't pay too much attention. I didn't really look into the teams before I picked them up. I picked up Texas Lutheran, and it turned out to be a great team. The previous owner, Dow 0405. Had built a really good team, and he had been gone for a couple of years, but the seniors and juniors are all guys he recruited, and it's been a really good team. But I just wanted to try a team from Texas. So
good fertile recruiting area in a lot of the divisions.
That's why I wanted to see.
Well, it all depends as everything else, who else is there.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got a ton of folks that are congested in a single area, it makes recruiting tough regardless of how many are in there available for you to pick from. I think we lost Sean. Oh, well, he'll be back, I hope. But yeah, it's tough to recruit in an area that's saturated with human coaches. And, the downside to that is if there are a lot of Sims, then a lot of those valuable recruits are already tagged onto Sims. Yeah. So you've got a battle nonetheless, but at least you have a good idea of how much you're going to have to spend to get them as long as nobody else is on them. Yeah. So you're relatively new. What is probably the single biggest hurdle that you had to overcome as a new coach?
I think all the different aspects of the game are complicated. At first you think they're straightforward, but you realize there's so many subtle nuances there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. I think they're all complicated, but for me, the biggest challenge has been just time management, because it's just so time consuming. And trying to keep on top of everything. And of course, I didn't help by getting all these additional teams. So it's really been tough for me to try and manage my time and keep up with everything.
Well, the one good thing about having a variety of teams is it gives you an opportunity in a confined human time frame, real world time frame, to kind of try out some things and get some trial and error under your belt. If you've got 4 or 5 teams that you can do that with that are set up rather similarly in your preferred style to the best of your knowledge at that young age as a coach, you can get some results back rather quickly and begin to make your adjustments and tinker. The downside to that is, unless you've inherited some really good teams, you're likely to find out you do a little more losing than you do winning, which hadn't been your case with that 780 winning percentage. But you've got, I think, 6 or 7 teams right now, and you've actually got a situation. Yeah, you've got a situation, I think, with Menlo in D3. And then your Johns Hopkins is that a D2 team? If I remember,
they're all D3.
Oh, all D3. Okay.
I'm still in way over my head at D3, so I'm definitely not ready for D2 yet.
Man, I'm telling you, D2, while it has more coaching ability and more activity and more options for a coach, I personally think D2 is a lot easier than D3, just from an intuitive aspect. In D3, most guys who coach this game in real world or Sunday night football or, Monday night football, they see it and they go, man, I could make that happen.
Right.
Those are the guys who want to specialize players. They want that fullback. They want that tight end that catches. They want that tight end that blocks. You don't get that to that degree in D3. D2 opens all those doors up to where you can then begin to specialize. And I honestly think having those doors open at the D2 level really helps a new coach because it's more intuitive as far as the way the football game should be played versus, you're rolling the dice and hoping that the guy you've got number 2 in your lineup is in fact the running back that's in the game when you want to throw to him. Versus D2, you have a slot for a possession running back, and you can put whoever you want in that number 1 slot, and if you play it right, he will be the one getting the passes. So, you've heard me say it, I know, on the boards and some others, get the hell out of D3.
Yeah. I definitely would like to get up to D2, but I feel like right now there's just still so much I need to learn, just the basics.
Yeah, and I totally appreciate that. I know we all have that bit of reluctance in the back of our psyche that says, am I really ready to move up to D2 or even going from D2 to 1AA and 1A and then on to an elite? You kind of have that second doubt. Am I really good enough to take this team? Am I really good enough to take that step? I'm here to tell you, going from D3 to D2, you're good enough. And, it's a matter of just getting into that availability of all those positions, all those different options that are available to you. It'll be like Christmas. But at the same time, I would not recommend taking that step when you've got 6 teams.
Yeah.
Because it is going to take a little more time at the upper levels.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just doing that to try and accelerate my learning curve.
Yeah.
Really try out the different formations. And I also wanted to see what it was like recruiting in different parts of the country. But I wanted to try all the different formations. And now that I've hit a stumbling block there because I really want to have a playbook for each formation. And I only can have 3 playbooks. So I think I've got to scale that back now.
Well, you know what happens at D2, right?
No. I guess
you get a lot more playbooks.
Yeah.
A lot more. Yeah. I think it's like 12 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a ton more. You think I'm here to used car salesman trying to sell D2 to the guy. I tell you, Sean, are you here? Let's see if we got him on here.
I'm here.
You got me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. No, we can't hear you. Armchair, what do you like to be called? I mean,
my name's Doug, but I think in some of the site mails, I correspond with people and use my name Doug or Armchair, doesn't matter.
Okay, either one. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you got a guy on the show with us here today who routinely, I shouldn't say routinely, I should say every time kicks my butt anytime we match up. And he does it convincingly, does a good job.
Mhm.
And he's not been around really all that long, but he seemed to figure out a thing or two. So I definitely point you in his direction if you ever got a head scratcher that you can't figure out or can't get answers to, because
he's already helped me quite a bit. I think
good.
Probably everybody in the forum. I think at some point I've asked so many questions in the forum. I'm sure at some point every experienced coach has helped me. I know Sean has. It's
Well, that's.
if I tried to thank
Armchair,
everybody and name everybody, I'd leave people out. But it's pretty much been just about every coach that's active on the forum has been helpful with
Good.
different tips.
Well, Majique, you were
every
talking
time
about like the confidence level moving from D3 to D2, and can you do it? Am I good enough? From my perspective, Doug, yeah, can you hear me still? From my perspective, you guys that ask all those questions are the ones that are usually the successful coaches. At being active on the boards and asking a lot of questions is usually a pretty good sign of somebody who can jump in and do some damage. And I'd say from the game plan perspective too, when I went from D3 to D2, that's when I really learned game planning. I was trying to figure out game planning at D3, and there were just so many different things you can't see because you don't have control over. And once you get to
some real difficulties, technical difficulties.
Oh, can you hear him, Doug?
I cannot.
You can't.
No.
I can hear him.
Okay,
you can hear me.
I'm probably having the technical difficulties. I can
and
hear
Sean
you.
can hear both of us.
I can hear
and
you.
I can hear both
you.
of you, but you can't hear Sean.
No, and I can't see him. I have a blank screen. His third of the screen is blank.
I wonder if maybe your screen is somehow or another not open all the way or something. I don't know.
I've got three different windows. You're in one window, I'm in one window, and then the other window, Sean's window, is just blank.
Wow. I wonder if it's a system on your computer or your laptop, maybe a system cache or a memory issue where it's not actually displaying or playing him. But just to paraphrase real quick, what he was saying is, you suck and really shouldn't be in this game.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
No, he's quite the opposite. He definitely gave you some high marks and said, don't hesitate about the doubt or the lack of self-confidence. You're good enough to be in that D2 move and move on up through the ranks. And the successful coaches, and I agree with him in this statement, the coaches who tend to be successful, especially as newcomers, are those coaches who reach out to others, either in IMs or site mail or on the message boards. And, it's those guys who get that valuable input from a variety of coaches and are able to take from each of those bits of information and kind of set up, what's valuable to them or what they should discard. But yeah, it's definitely a good sign when a guy comes in, and a girl for that matter, comes in and starts pinging the board to get some answers. We as longtime coaches don't mind answering. One of my pet peeves, and I've said it a long time, many times, is when somebody asks a question that was asked like 3 messages prior. That tells me the guy's not even trying to read the board. I don't expect you to go back 3 months or 6 months, but for crying out loud, if somebody right in front of you asks, hey, when does recruiting start? You're not going to get an answer from me. I mean, I'm not going to waste my time. If two posts above yours was, hey, when's recruiting going to start?
I try to search the forum, although I probably have asked some questions that have been asked and answered already, but that search engine in the forum is not.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I know Adam has mentioned, kind of tidying up and making a little more robust in regards to how you can search, using some of those key features where you can exclude certain words or include specific words. Right now, You know, you put in 2 words and it will find everything and anything, no matter whether you put it in quotes or an and sign, or it's crazy. But it's an improvement that's coming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of improvements, you know, we saw this one that popped up here 29th, I think it was. And for us, essentially what it did was allow the third-party apps to be able to run again on the website. And essentially, and I'm sure somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it, that's essentially the jhunterz tool and the one that EZ has done for us, where they actually access the database and can go in and retrieve information based on recruits or teams or whatever the case is. But the roadblock to that was the fact that it was such a valuable tool and it did such a thorough job that if, you know, a handful of people are running it simultaneously, it essentially overwhelmed and task saturated the server.
Yeah.
So there had to be some background things done to prevent that server perceiving a heavy workload and kind of streamlining some of that and maybe putting it in different modules so that it didn't eat up so much of the server's ability. And that's what I believe this latest update did for the Gridiron Dynasty community. Now, having said that, I don't know if EZ has unlocked his tool to work again, because I know at one point he locked it so that it couldn't be used. And jhunterz, I haven't heard from him in many moons, so I don't know if he's even available to tinker with his so that his has access once again. But essentially that's what it was. The other key feature was one of my hopes and dreams, and back when I was running strictly Notre Dame, and that is in the playbook. When you use a Notre Dame playbook, you know, you saw Notre Dame. Notre Dame box. That was it. You couldn't tell if it was your run, your pass, what. You didn't get to see your customized name as the extension to that particular formation. And they've since reduced that down to, I believe, ND box. So now at least you get a few more characters to where you can see at least the beginning of whatever it is custom name that you provided to that particular play in that playbook. And, you know, it's those little things that we would have never seen changed up until about a year ago or so with this new staff. And again, that's no slight on Sable. He was a one-armed bandit trying to fight a bunch of heavyweight fighters. I mean, they just left him out in the pasture to dry because he did not have the help he needed. He didn't have the tools and the resources to actually effectively do the job that he was expected to do. So, again, it's not a slight on him. It's just that now the staffing is ramped up. We get the opportunity with the resources to do some of those little things that actually in turn mean a lot. You know, you're talking about time saving. How much more of a time saver is it to glance down and see immediately what your play is versus having to click each one of those drop downs and validate that that is the play you want? That's a small change, but it's a very valuable. What are some of the things, if you could change one thing about GD, granted you're at D3, what would be the one thing you could change?
Well, I mean, I would love to see a little more control at the D3 level, but I guess they intend it that way.
Exactly.
I've corresponded with them a couple of times, and they said that they really intend it that way. They don't want newcomers to be crushed by experienced coaches who not only have the experience but then have control to use that experience and crush the newcomers. So
exactly.
It would be a big help if we could use some of those time-saving tools again, like Ed Zimney's or jhunterz's recruiting assistant. Because the last couple of recruiting cycles I went through, it was overwhelming the amount of time that it took for me to build my database and track the players I was recruiting. It would be really helpful if those were working again.
Yeah, especially that real-time factor where you've got, once recruiting starts, you've got that 3-hour cycle. And, each cycle, you're essentially whittling out your players. You're culling which ones are, going to be not worth the battle or which ones suck or whatever the case may be. And that takes a lot of annotation and, pen and ink if that's how you're doing it, or database entry, whereas some of these other tools do exactly what you do, but it just does it in a lot more efficient manner. And that's always been the platform that I stand on when it comes to these third-party tools. Is it's not a cheating tool, it's an efficiency factor. And there's those out there in the opposite corner of the ring on that, and I challenge them to come on the show and we'll debate it. And if I don't like what they have to say, I'll just take them off the stage. No, I would never do that unless it's hold away. Now him, I'll kick off the stage from time to time. But Sean, like I said, he's a relative newcomer. How long you been playing this game, Sean? Real life years?
Just over a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, so he paid somebody something to get the information that he's using to kick my ass on a regular basis. You've been around now to see some of these changes since Adam has come on board. Have you ever experienced any type of interactive game like this where you can actually talk to the developers or talk to those people who can make the changes within the game in any other platform?
No, not at all. I mean, it's been I'm trying to think. The only games that would kind of come close to this are, like a fantasy football when you're with, talking to your commissioner who's your next door neighbor. Aside from that, you're not getting any game like this. I mean, so that's what's it's just good to have somebody kind of thinking about these things. And that Notre Dame box thing, it's such a simple change, but it's huge. It's for people that use the Notre Dame box, you can't describe how huge that is. It's just a big time saver. Some of the recruiting changes they made, allowing you to do like mass playing time promises and stuff like that will save a ton of time.
Yes, big time.
Well, actually, maybe not so much anymore since they took the playing time. They never get penalized for it.
But you like you said, you can do those mass recruiting efforts versus individual stuff. So did you catch all of that, Doug?
No, I can't hear. I can't see.
You're gonna have to watch the show,
YouTube, right?
just to hear what's going on. And the bad part is Sean hasn't said a word in the last minute. We've been faking it. I don't know what's going on with that, but hopefully the next time you come on, we can see what's going on, and at least you and I can interact now. But before we couldn't even do that, so that's a bit of a plus, I guess it is to say.
I'll have
anyway,
help me with these technical issues.
Yeah, we usually ask the guys that come on to be interviewed a little bit about their personal history, personal background, and of course everything is based on you, whatever you're willing to share. But namely, it's just what do you do, where you from, what's your real name, how'd you get your ID, all that kind of stuff. So run with it.
My name's Doug. I'm 53 years old. I'm originally from Philly. I was born in Philly, raised in the Philly suburbs. I went to Penn State. After I graduated, I moved down to Virginia. I was working in D.C., met my wife, my soon-to-be wife in Virginia.
Well, I was going to say, if you met your wife, didn't you know her when you married her?
Right. Yeah. So I've been living in Virginia, I guess, for about 30 years now. Still work in D.C.
So I take it Northeast Virginia,
Yes.
the Northern Point,
Yep.
Fairfax, that type area.
Yeah, Burke, very close to Fairfax.
Yeah, and you probably know that Shannon and I are from Virginia.
I knew from one of your earlier episodes that you had spent some time in Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, he's from kind of almost central Virginia area. I'm about 60 miles southwest of Richmond, not far from the North Carolina border there.
Okay.
So yeah, our high schools played ball against each other, but not while either one of us were there, I don't think. I like talking trash to him about it. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, please. Absolutely.
So I've married, have a son. He's 14, or he just turned 14. usually we're really, really busy with all kinds of sports and after school activities and clubs and scouts and all. But, during the pandemic, a lot of that fell by the wayside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we just now, his swim season started, and that's his first sport since since 2019.
Oh, yeah. He's biting chomping at the bit there to get back at throw something, swim, hit something.
Yeah.
14. Man.
Yeah. So, I found out about one of my friends, one of my neighbors and good friends. He'd played Gridiron Dynasty probably like 10 years ago. I think he was in like 2008, 2010. He was in that time frame. But then, when he had kids, he dropped out. And during the pandemic, he got back into it, and he told me about it. And as soon as I heard about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is right up my alley. I've got to do this. I'm kind of amazed that it's been around for so long and I had never heard of it.
Well, that kind of struck me too, because when I joined, it was 2005, I believe, and it had been around for about 6 years at that point. Mm-hmm. And I had been very proactive in trying to find some type of football play / coach / management game. So I hadn't seen it, and I don't remember what happened or how I stumbled across it, but I did. And, I've taken a hiatus here and there, but for the most part, it's been over 15 years now, or going on 15 years. So yeah. And I'm, once you get to playing the game and get a better grasp for it and understand it, you can't help but be hooked. I'm already hooked. A good platform. Yeah.
I've just got to find a way to get back to get some balance with my normal life. My wife she's been very tolerant. She hasn't complained too much directly, but I can tell it bothers her, the amount of time I've been spending.
Well, she can call my wife and get some tips, because mine's always like, are you going in there to play your fake game again?
Yeah.
Man, listen, Sean wanted to know what part of Philly you're from.
I'm from Havertown. It's Delaware County. I was born in the city, and then my parents, when I was really young, moved out into the suburbs, Delaware County. If you went out 69th Avenue out towards Westchester, Delaware County is the first county you come to. I think I was like 15 minutes from downtown Philly.
I think my buddy Kaz is from Philly too. The guy that's in the intro where I was giving him crap about.
It seemed like there were a lot of people from Philly or from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we have people on the game from all over the world. There's people in England playing, Germany. There's some Aussies, my mates, love them. And the really neat thing is I talked to a guy, I think he was like 19 years old playing this game. And, there's some 80s. Yeah, I said 80 as in 80. So, it's diverse. It's definitely got a broad range. And that in of itself tells you something about the lure of this game. It's not so complicated that the younger group or the more mature group can't play it. And it's not centralized to where, you've got a 10 or 20 year demographic that it targets. I mean, that's a huge span. So they're doing something right. And I really like the fact that we got some different countries in there as well. Players who have never stepped foot in the United States, but are fans of NFL teams or fans of college teams that are involved in this. So that's really neat to see. And the ladies, we've got a handful of ladies that play this sport, and Kev's girls whoop my butt a time or two. So I keep asking her to come on the show.
Right.
We'll get them on here one of these days. That's for sure. Try to get them, tell us some of their secrets on how they whoop us. Let me see if Sean can get back in here. See if you can hear him. He popped out and popped back in. Let's see if you can hear him, Doug. Can you see him?
I cannot see him.
That's a good thing.
The problem is probably on my end. I wonder if I leave and come back in, but then I'm worried if I do that, I'll lose you.
You can't hear him. He's talking to you, Doug. You can't.
Can you hear me, Doug?
Sorry.
Yeah, he called you all kind of names.
I'm telling you all the secrets to magic then.
Yes.
Yeah. He said he's going to tell me all his secrets, and we're not going to. I'm going to cancel this so it doesn't go live. Man, well, guys, you guys are in for a treat. I'm going to do something that I've been promising to do for. It's probably been 5 or 6 months, and I found it and I uploaded it, and we're going to see if it works. All right, and. Doug, were you familiar with the podcast version of This, That, and the Other?
I've watched
the season one, essentially.
Yeah, I watched the YouTube videos of like the first 10 or 12 episodes, and I saw your commercials.
Okay, so well, guess what? We're going to see if this works. Let's see what happens.
I remember when my grandfather gave me my first candy, a worthless original. It stuck to the roof of my mouth, so I pried it off with a flathead screwdriver. But it flew through the air, and wouldn't you know, it landed in the toilet. Well, being just a wee tyke, I didn't know any better, so I fished that worthless original out of the crapper and popped it right back in my mouth. It still tasted delicious. Hours later, the candy stuck fast to my fingers like rubber cement. Then I had an itch on my pee-pee, and it stuck there too. Well, then the family dog became interested in the worthless original candy and began to lick it. When Mother saw what was going on, what with the dog and all, she threw a bucket of scalding hot water on us to separate us. It worked, but the shock of that hot water made the dog clamp down on me. And, well, I've been worthless ever since, if you know what I mean.
Worthless original candies, creating lasting emotional scars since 1895.
Now that goes out to Mojo and Shannon and some of those old timers that like the commercials. I had one guy, he psyched me on me. He said, dude, I get what you're trying to do, but the only reason I tune in is for the commercials. So I took him out.
I'll have to see that on the YouTube. I missed it.
Oh man, these gosh, I think there's probably 20 or so commercials, and they were all free, free audio. And I took some free sound files and blended them and mixed them. And yeah, there's even some Barney Rubble and Fred Flintstone stuff on there as well. I mean, there's quite a few funny ones. Now, of course, and I don't know if you know the background about how TTATO became the name, but my mother of German descent, she's God love her, she gets tongue-tied sometimes, and she's been over here in the United States for 50 years, for crying out loud. Come on, Mom, get with the program. You know the name of whatever it is you're trying to say, but she'll say, this, that, and the other. And that's been kind of her kick. She gets tongue-tied, and she'll just say, oh, yeah, this, that, and the other. So that's how I named the show, because it's actually applicable to what we do. You got some of this, you get some of that, and every once in a while you throw in a little bit of the other. Yeah. So that's how she got the honor of having the show named after her. But she listened to an episode, and I don't remember which one it was now, but she called me up and she goes, what are you doing with those commercials? That is just nasty. You can't be saying stuff like that. I said, oh, wait, Mom, you ain't heard the best of them yet. So I played about 5 or 6 of them, and I could tell she was in tears laughing. I said, it's innocent.
Reminds me of the Dr. Demento show I used to listen to when I was younger.
Way back when. Hey, I'm going to see, Doug, if you can hear Hunter. jhunterz. Daryl's on with us now. Daryl, Doug is on, but Doug has had a hard time hearing you, other than me.
I see a blank quadrant. I now see 2 blank quadrants.
2 blank quadrants. I've been called worse.
So you can't see him or hear him.
Nah.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
sure
that's
the problems on my end.
Yeah, because Sean can see.
Maybe he should log out, log back in, because that's what he did last time, and he could hear you.
I think I should exit and try and come back in.
That's exactly what Sean said. So you can hear him. Yeah, get out of here, Doug. Try it again. Now, what we should do while Doug's coming back, as soon as he pops back in, everybody just.
I look like that anyway.
Or just turn
the old fish out of water.
Just turn our cameras off to look like a black box again.
You messed up everybody.
You missed it, Daryl. I just played the Worthless Originals commercial.
No, I actually, the only reason I remembered it was on tonight was I was sitting in the living room and I grabbed my phone because I'd got a text message and it kicked up that it was on live. So I turned it on there and I thought I could get on there and I couldn't. So I thought, well, I'll just grab my laptop. But
you got to hear it.
I got to hear it. Yep.
Oh, man. Doug says he can't see or hear you.
I can.
Oh, you can see him?
Yes.
And
you hear
Sean?
us too?
Yep. We're good.
So you have 4 people on the screen.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's our show for tonight. We appreciate everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Daryl, we've been trying to convince Doug to go up to D2 because he's got 6 teams in D3. He's been playing since April. Got a 780 winning percentage. And he's really picked the brain of a lot of good coaches, so he's got a lot of good insight, and he's picked some good teams to take over, but, he's had to keep them between the alleys, so he's doing a good job. He mentioned a little bit of difficulty in his confidence as far as being able to handle D2 from what he's heard, all the different buttons and bells and whistles that D2 offers that D3 doesn't. And I recommended that if he's going to go into D2, he needs to probably do it with a little pared down version of the 6 teams he's got now because of the additional time it's going to take at the D2 level. What kind of advice you got for him?
Oh, I would definitely say go up. It's to me, D3 is just so. I mean, it's a sit it and forget it game at D3, and you lose a lot of the luster to me. D2, I think, is actually the easiest division to play in because the recruiting is it's not like anything else. D3, you basically have to sign an undecided. You might get one guy that you can battle for or something like that, but it's basically all you're doing is getting undecided. Division 2, once you get rolling, your first couple of seasons you're going to have to do a lot more undecideds and stuff like that. But there's so many more to choose from because you don't have Division 3 coming up after them, and you don't have Division 1 AA coming down to get on top of them. So the whole world is wide open. It's the easiest recruiting to me that there is because there's so much talent to choose from, and you don't have to worry about getting jumped at the end by a 1AA team or anything like that, like you do if you're a 1AA. A 1A team loses a battle, here they come after your guy. So, the recruiting is just way easier for me. And then that's why I say it does help. You can kind of learn the ropes as far as, some of the game planning and trying to put in some little wrinkles here and there. But it's once you get it going, it's kind of the same way as Division 3. Everybody gets their certain things and you go in and game plan against who you're playing against, if somebody's all run or all pass, you'll change that. But for the most part, a lot of people just on your offense, you run your offense and you make somebody stop you, and you basically have to go in and change your defense to kind of, go against their offense. But most coaches that I play against or that I know of, they run the same offense every, game in, game out, and it's up to you to stop it. So.
Sean, do you recommend a particular area geographically where someone who's moving up to D2? Now, we all realize that, some areas can be saturated with humans, while another world, that same area has one human in it. So, the Valdostas, the Humboldt, some of the Texas teams. But other than that, an area that isn't very commonly, I'm trying to figure out how to wait. An area outside of Texas or Valdosta or Humboldt, basically, because those are the ones that a lot of coaches are sitting on.
Well, I think so. There's 2 things here, right? One is I think it's good to start off on the East Coast because you get a fairly consistent the talent's consistent there, right? So if you start off, even a place like Valdosta is a really good place to recruit from, but the talent's not as consistent. Like every year in the East Coast, you're going to get, you're going to have at least 3 to 5 decent quarterbacks, 3 to 5 decent running backs every single year. In Valdosta, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 3 this year and none next year.
Yeah.
And so and that's harder, I think. That's harder because you got to try to balance your teams in different ways. And so when you're starting off, it's probably good to be more on the consistent side to let you have that consistent flow of talent and really learn the game. The other place you could go that I think is kind of a hidden gem is up in that like Michigan, Wisconsin area, in the GLIAC. That's where you get like Hillsdale, Ferris State, Wayne State, and all those teams. They are not many people go up there, and there's a ton of talent up there. You usually have St. Joe's, who's always usually filled, and they're hard to compete with. But for the most part, there's a lot of talent there, and you can do pretty well. And I'd say, Doug, I heard earlier you were talking. You didn't hear me, but you were talking about how you're trying to figure out game planning. I didn't really figure out game planning until I went to D2 because there's so much in D3. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you can't control. And so you look at the play-by-play data and you're like, how the hell did that happen? That doesn't make any sense. Well, when you get to D2, you can figure out why it happened because you're controlling all the variables, right? And so that was what really opened my eyes. I actually became a better D3 game planner by playing in D2 because I said, oh, okay, that's what I'm missing in D3.
Right.
I actually think it's easier to learn to game plan in D2. And it's a little bit more time consuming up front, but it took me, I've only been playing for a year and a half or so. Initially, it took me a while it took me a lot of time with each team, but you get a lot faster as it goes. You just get in the flow and you figure out your system, and then you kind of just run with it.
Yeah.
Doug, man, you got 2 great coaches here that you can just pick their brains. I know that they're just full of knowledge. So fire away.
To make the move up to D2. I think that winning percentage, my winning percentage is a little exaggerated because I can beat the Sims about 90% of the time, but I routinely get my butt kicked by any other humans.
And that's, one of those, I shouldn't say one of them. The primary reason I get my butt kicked by humans is I make mistakes. And those mistakes are, I forgot I was playing somebody tonight. I've got my sim lineup set and I'm like, oh yeah, I got sims for the next 4 games. And then the 5th game rolls around and it's, 11 o'clock in the afternoon Central. And I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder what the score is. Wait a minute. I'm playing a human. Oh crap. And so a lot of times that I'm getting my butt kicked, I suck, but it's because I screw up stuff too. Or I'll set my game plan, and I'm notorious for doing this. And I've preached on several episodes about this. I put my particular desired offense in my game plan. It's there. I see it. But then I make my offensive adjustment on a different game plan. And that's real bad for defense. Because if I'm playing somebody that's passing and I'm like, okay, I got my passing game plan that I'm going to use against this guy, but in my game plan, I put the defense, and it sounds like, how do you do that? Trust me, it happens. And I mention that so that when, not if, but when it happens to you, once you get up to D2, don't fret. It just slap yourself upside the head and press on, because I've done it. I have done it in probably chunks to where I'll go for several weeks or months and not do it. And then there'll be a brain fart. And there'll be like 3 or 4 times where I do it in a matter of days. And I've got notes written all over the place. I just see them so often that I don't see them anymore. So, I've got a calendar that tells me when recruiting starts, all that stuff, but it doesn't tell me when I'm playing the human. I scripted a spreadsheet for that, and it was just, I became a slave to it. It was too much of a pain in the butt to keep track of. So, yeah, you're going to find mistakes like that you make as a coach that you really can compensate for by not doing it again. It's not a game issue. It's not like you're having to learn something. So, yeah, don't fret that. Any other questions you got for us? Like I say, you got a good panel here tonight.
Oh, I mean, I've got so many questions that I've asked on the forum and have gotten a lot of guidance on those questions. Can't think of anything right now, but I'm sure as soon as the show ends, I'll have like 3 questions for
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to put out a challenge right now, and I'm being nice about this. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm going to be nice. Bag chucker, show your face. Come on the show.
Oh,
I know a lot of people love to meet you, and I'm not saying that to be mean. We all have our reasons for doing stuff, but I'd love to just sit down and chat and see what you're all about.
I would like to say he did, even bag chucker, even though he's the contrarian and likes to disrupt on the boards. He actually has given me some good advice in that instance.
Yeah, exactly.
So. And I feel really bad about what happened last week. I was gone from the board for about a week, and when I came back, I saw that he had been kicked off. And I just
bag chucker got kicked off.
Yeah. I don't know if it's temporary or permanent. But if anybody out there knows him, if anybody out there knows him, and reality, it may be the alter ego of somebody that we all love and worship for their greatness. Hell, for all I know, it could be Freeman. It could be Shannon. It could be Ray. It could be Daryl. Who knows? But nonetheless, even if he wants to take the cloak off and put an end to it, it's just hilarious, some of the stuff he comes up with. And you're like, where do you get this? How high on heroin do you have to be to come up with this stuff? It's just, some of it's crazy, and some of them I'm like, oh, he's just being a jerk now. But again, that, every forum, every message board has that 1 or 2 set of personalities that come out and kind of ruffle the feathers from now. And a lot of people, early on, you mentioned the name Snake Pete. And a lot of people are like, well, I remember that guy. He was a bitch. And other guys are like, oh, man, he's a great coach. So it's just, to each his own, but definitely would love to have Bag Chucker on the show, kind of reveal himself, get some good laughs on some of the stuff.
Yeah, if you had him and Mojo, lad, that'd be a show in itself.
Oh my gosh! Well, Mojo has said this is not his platform.
I seen that.
Prefers not to come on. Love to have him on sometime. And that's another guy, Doug, that kicks my butt on a routine basis. So he gets it. I mean, he gets it done. He's got my number as well. So I don't know what's going on with my abilities or lack thereof to get things done, but it just I can't keep it rolling. I can get my hand full of wins and get a game or 2 into the playoffs, and then I'm home watching TV. So, well, any last parting words, Sean, before we wrap up this show? All righty then.
No, I couldn't get myself off mute. No, I mean, I think the one thing I'd say, Doug, is how I learned most of what I know is going through the boards. I
Yes.
kept, not just the current stuff. I used to go back whenever I'm just like laying in bed and can't sleep or sitting around doing nothing. I go back, and at one point I was, back like probably like 3 years into the boards or so, just and I did not reading everything. There's a handful of like bag chucker stuff I just passed through, but every once in a while you see like a good topic and you're like, oh, what's that about? And you can kind of tell it's one of the topics where it's not like, hey, when does recruiting start? And it's more around the deep, like setting up game plans and stuff like that. And there's a ton of good stuff in there. There's a guy named Nitros who puts a ton of good, or he's not around anymore, I don't think, but he used to put a ton of good stuff in there. So yeah, I'd spend free time going back, and then I would just get into D2. I don't think even just take one of your 6 teams, roll them up to D2, and just see what happens. Worst case, you lose some games, but there's just it is a different game. It is a different game, but I think you learn more about even D3 in D2 than you do in D3.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that D2 recruiting is definitely the easiest. I just gave up my last D3 team recently because the recruiting was just pissing me off. I couldn't deal with the $3 you get every recruiting season anymore.
That was Delaware Valley State.
Yeah. I couldn't take it.
Yeah, and that is one word of caution I give to anybody moving up to D2 is don't let the numbers swallow your head and to think you got freedom to do what you want, because everybody else has those dollar numbers as well. You know, it's twice the money when you jump up from D3 to D2. So, but I swear it's twice the money, but it only goes half as far. You get, because everybody has it. Daryl, what are your parting words for Doug?
No, I pretty much say the same thing. I mean, it'll definitely help you. Like I said, as long as you move one team up, you know, you don't have to jump in head first or anything. Yeah. At least move one team up, kind of get your feet wet and see how it goes. But I think you'll like it a lot better because, like I said, I mean, there's things you can change, and it's only as time consuming as you make it, really. I mean, like I said, when you first start out your first couple of seasons, it's going to take a little bit longer because you got to get everything. You got to figure out what you want to do, you know, and get your team set up the way you want and all that. But once you get going, I mean, the game planning, you kind of have them already set. You know, you go through and you're you know, you've got an all pass defense, an all run defense, or, you know, 50-50 or however you want to do it. You can, you know, and you'll have them. And basically all you do is, you know, you see what they do and you put your defense against it and let it ride, you know, and it's, you know, go from there. But, you know, like I said, it's a little bit of time commitment at first, just getting everything set up the way you want it. But after that, it's, you know, each level you go up, it stays with you. So unless you want to change something, you know, on your end, it's just keep rolling with it and experiment. I mean, that's the only way. You know, trust me, I don't know everything. I still get my butt handed to me plenty of times, and you know, sometimes you just have to adjust, try something else that you haven't tried, and you know, sometimes it hits and sometimes it misses.
And I got great advice for you. If you're going to move up to D2, find a world that I'm in, challenge me, and you'll be guaranteed one win that season. Because that's a guarantee. No, definitely. Move up to D2. At least be able to see, like what Sean was saying. You don't know what you don't know. You know, get up there and at least get to see what the bells and whistles are. And at that point, you can then determine: do I bring up another team? Do I play with this one a little bit more, or do I drop back down to D3? So I wouldn't come up and try.
I wouldn't worry too much about the formations either. There's slight differences in my experience in different formations, but they're all kind of the same. You can do the same game plan with any formation. There's going to be, I'd say the differences really are in who is going to, like if you're running the wishbone versus trips, like who's going to be covering your guys is going to be the difference in the formation, but you can still run almost the exact same game plan with that offense. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to get them all. And they're all pretty similar. And then when I'm on D3, I don't mess around with them at all. I just run whatever the hell, like the pro or I formation. I don't run the any special formation unless I'm in D2 or above, just because it's too hard and you can't specialize. Like with Notre Dame box, one of the things that people like to do is having two good receiving tight ends and maybe two good blocking tight ends. You can't do that in D3. Mm-hmm. You just got to have any old tight end. So there's just things you can't do. But I'd say that don't spend a lot of time worrying about the formations because they're all pretty much the same once you kind of get your game plan. It's more important to figure out who you're going to throw the ball to and how often and all that kind of stuff than it is to
yeah, good point. Good point. Doug, parting words, brother.
Oh, thanks everybody for, Sean and Jay. I'm sorry, Jay, is your first name Jay?
No, it's
here you go, Daryl.
That's actually my son's ID. I took over. His first name starts with J. His middle name is Hunter. But he lasted a couple of months and he was like, I'm over it. So I kind of held on to his ID and then was trying different things. I've got a few IDs. I've never hid them from anybody. So I'm Herculoids, I'm jhunterz, and I'm Zerfo. So if you come across any of those, they're all me.
Okay. Well, yeah, Daryl, Sean, and Majique, thanks.
Actually, Doug, if you're in Wilkinson, you can move up to NC State. It was NC State that just left and went to is like an 8-time national champ. There's a good place to get started.
Oh, Speakeasy left?
It was
Central, I think it was.
Speakeasy, yeah, I think just left. Yeah,
did he? Well, I left Kingsville too, so
I'll be right back.
But yeah, I guess as parting words, I would thank you guys and everybody on the forum. All the coaches on the forum have been very helpful. Even Bag Chucker and the Contrarians have been helpful at times. So,
well, guys, thank y'all for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom with Doug. Doug, thanks for coming on and giving us some good green perspective, as I call it, the new guy perspective on this. And again, to everybody who's watched, appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you've learned something from this show. And until next time, I'm your host, Majique. We'll see you then.